Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, what's bigger, a Nintendo minigame or a Smurf? Keep in mind, Smurfs are no bigger than 3 apples tall. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as I'm always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. I have to be completely honest with you, Patrick.
Yeah.
I feel a little, queasy because I'm imagining a 3 apples tall Smurf.
Okay, so it's unsettling, yes. They're too large.
It genuinely... Okay, here's the scenario I'm imagining.
Yeah.
On this table that we're recording at, there is a 3 apples tall little blue gnome thing wearing white, and I pick it up with my 2 hands.
Yeah.
And it's squirming.
Is it warm to the touch?
It is.
Oh.
It's it genuinely, imagining picking up a Smurf that is that large.
Yeah.
Genuinely makes me want to vomit, and I'm not exaggerating.
Well, so here's something that it does make me wonder. No more than 3 apples tall, right? So that's the max, first of all. And second of all, are we talking about modern apples that you and I eat, or Smurfs part of some German folklore or something? And so they've got these weird little German crab apples or something.
Yeah, before they're even I'm gonna hope that it's the latter, because I don't want to live in a world where Smurfs are larger than ankle towel.
Yeah,
that's the size of
a can of soda.
A can of soda feels like
okay
a right amount.
Yeah.
I can imagine picking up a can of soda and feeling fine with that. But anything larger and it's struggling against you.
No, I don't like that.
No, it's too gross.
Mark, can I tell you something that happened to me today?
Yeah, please.
I at lunch today, I was like, you know what? I'm feeling a little bit of an urge. I would like a Sprite.
Okay.
Fountain Sprite. Right? Ordered it. And was like, here we go. I don't really drink soda, but I felt the compulsion to do it. And following my own advice from Monday, I have the urge, so I'm gonna do it.
Yes.
And I got the Sprite, and I was like, this is gonna be great. I popped the straw in. I took a sip, and it was one of those messed up soda fountains.
No.
So it was just carbonated water with maybe a hint of Sprite or sweetness or something in there. The syrup had run out.
Yeah.
But there was still syrup in the pipes or something. And I was like, you know what? This is fine. I honestly didn't need a full Sprite.
Wow. So just laying down and taking pipe syrup.
Yeah, I absolutely laid down and took pipe syrup. You're right. I felt okay about it. So,
well, that's good.
Yeah.
Then it all worked out.
Mark, if people want to support us at our Patreon, how can they do that?
They can go to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society. There you can support us at the 4-bit, 8-bit, or 16-bit level. And if you're supporting us at the 8-bit or 16-bit level, you have access to our monthly bonus episodes. We just wrapped up, we're doing them in mini-series.
Yeah.
And so we just wrapped up a mini-series that was called NCS Detective Club, where we talked about the great detective shows of television. Did 6 episodes of that. And now we're moving on to a new series that'll kick off in July, where we're talking about Broadway musicals. All of it has been a lot of fun. I feel like, when we started it, just were, I guess, not really sure how these sorts of things are going to be received, because not everybody shares the same love for TV detectives that we do. But I feel like the feedback's been really good. So I guess what I would say is don't let that deter you. And a few weeks ago, we released a preview of NCS Detective Club that you can check out if you're curious to see what that is like.
And also, it should maybe be said that it's okay, it's fun to watch the episodes and then listen to our episodes about those episodes, but I think you can also go in blind. We do a pretty thorough job of recapping the stories while also adding commentary and making little jokes and having a great fun time. So Yeah, if that feels like a barrier to entry where you're like, I can watch 2 episodes of Marple and
Right.
each one is 90 minutes long, and then there's a 4-hour episode about them, I can see where you're like, NCS, you're not getting 7 hours of my time. You can just listen to the episode.
Absolutely. But thank you so
yes.
much to everybody who has signed up for Patreon. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much to everybody who listens to the show. We really appreciate that as well.
And another way that you can be, interacting with us, letting us know how you are feeling about the shows that we're doing for the Patreon bonus episodes. You could join our Discord. All you gotta do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, and we will send you an invitation. And then you'll have access to all of the fun people in there chatting about Nintendo stuff all the time. It's a good group. Little programming reminder here. The next 2 weeks, we will not be doing news episodes. Mark and I taking a little summer break.
That's right. Beach bodies ready.
That's our beach bodies are at the ready. We've got towels to lay out on and a pair of cool shades, and we are just ready to eat some watermelon on the beach and have a great time. That's summer to me. I think I pretty much distilled summer down to
absolutely
4 specifics. So there will be no news episodes. Mark, what if something huge happens?
Then we will call an emergency. You and I will pick up our specially purchased burner cell phones that only have one number programmed in each of them, and that is each other's.
And this is different from the other phone number that we share.
Yes.
Right?
Okay,
good.
Yep. This one is for break the glass emergency. So if Nintendo were to announce some sort of direct or other presentation, or just something gosh darn happens that we need to talk about,
then we'll get on it.
Then we'll figure out a way to make it work.
So that's 2 weeks without news episodes. We will still be joining you on Thursday for topic episodes, so it's not like you're really rid of us at all. So, but yes, that's what's coming up. All right, Mark, we've got a fun topic to dig into. We are going to be discussing Nintendo minigame collections. It sort of in celebration of Everybody 1-2 Switch, I think. But first, some news. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. They announced that DLC is coming to this thing. DLC in the form of the DLC is called hold on, I did not super prepare for this. It's called Dimension Shell Shock, and it includes some new game modes and new characters, including Usagi Yojimbo. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. It's a game that I loved that came out last year. It's a sort of classic looking Ninja Turtles beat 'em up style game, except it is so expertly crafted that it's a beat 'em up that you can actually play strategically and learn how to get good at. I loved this game, and I'm over the moon that there's DLC coming to it, including new characters, and that one of those new characters is Usagi Yojimbo.
That sounds really fun. So no new. It's not more story mode or whatever you would call it. Just new modes and new characters to play the game with before.
So the first bullet point here from the developer is explore dimensions in an upcoming new game mode. Additional details coming soon.
Oh,
so
maybe it's a side story or something?
It could be a side story. It could be it's really unclear. I was gonna say maybe it's just challenge rooms of bad guys. That's the whole game. But yeah, it seems like the big thing is the new characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they only revealed one new character, but it definitely says characters with an S. So we might be setting ourselves up for heartbreak like the additional styles in Mario Maker 2. But this isn't Nintendo. This is somebody else, right?
Is there a release date or release window, or right now it's just been announced?
It has just been announced. Yeah.
I wonder if we will be hearing more, because I think Summer Games Fest kicks off today.
It does. Yeah.
And then so I wonder if we'll be hearing more soon.
So I guess it will be available later in 2023.
So so it is this year.
This year, but there's no firm date on that.
Very cool.
I'm very excited about this game. It's there is a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Usagi Yojimbo crossover in the comics right now, which is very cool. It's nice to see that they that Stan Sakai is working with Nickelodeon and Viacom again to like have that character incorporated into their
This is
stuff.
like the Samurai Rabbit. Is
He's a
that right?
samurai rabbit,
Okay.
yeah. And he usually exists in like ancient Japan. So like when he crosses over with the turtles, something strange has happened.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they're both Stan Sakai and Eastman and Laird, the Ninja Turtle guys, are kind of cut their teeth in that like mid '80s black and white comic era, and like Usagi Yojimbo was a Mirage comic. Mirage was the imprint that Eastman and Laird set up when they cashed in on Ninja Turtles. So like there's a long history of these properties like working together, but there's also a pretty long history of there being sort of like acrimony between all parties involved. And it's just always nice when Usagi can show up in Turtle stuff. All right. Now I'm going to get us out of the news so we can do what we actually came here to talk about. Let's talk about our favorite Nintendo minigame collections. First, Mark, I want to know how do you feel about minigame collections in general? Is it a kind of game that you like gravitate towards? Is it something you like?
Yeah, I was thinking about so when we decided on this topic, at first I was like, oh, like there's so many examples of them in Nintendo's first party library.
Yeah.
And then when I actually like got into it to generate my own list, I was like, on the one hand, maybe there's not as many as I was thinking, but also there's different variations, different flavors
Absolutely.
of like minigame collections within like what we're calling, or what I'm anyways grouping in together as like minigame collections, because there are things like, and not to step on anybody's list, but there are games that are like the Game and Watch collections, which are collections of like standalone Game and Watch games that they're putting together that I count as a mini game collection for the purposes of this episode. Then there's also things like like Wii Sports or something like that, which are like not
do they count
in the traditional sense, and it's not a compilation of existing games that they're putting together. And you know what I mean? Like,
yes, I definitely do, and I have a lot of like honorary a lot of honorary mentions. Is that what you would call that?
Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. There we go. A lot of honorable mentions that I think like, and I'll just throw it out here now because I don't think either of us have too much to say about it. But I feel like you can put all the Pilot Wings games into a category of minigame collection.
It's such like a thin line, like, and some of it is just like calling it like you see it, and so but yeah, and that's what I found like so interesting. I think most of what I like, okay, I'll just like again, just another example of my thought process. I haven't played it, but there's like Elite Beat Agents for the Nintendo DS, right?
Sure.
Which is supposed to be like a really good game, and I was like, oh, like maybe I should do like a little research on it, maybe this fits. But I don't think it does.
I would say
it's just
probably
like a
not.
rhythm
it's
game.
a rhythm game
that has different stages. But like, I guess the line that I am drawing, kind of like the rough definition, and I'm just free handing this, so this may not actually like be right.
This is good. It's going in the book.
But kind of is like, okay, a game. Like, in order to qualify in my mind as a mini game collection or a mini game compilation, each game has to have its own like gameplay style.
Sure.
And it can't really, not that it can't repeat, but what I think is different is, but like the gameplay loop is not the same. Whereas like something like Elite Beat Agents, it's like, well, there's maybe like 4 different like rhythm games that you're like playing within it.
But they're all fundamentally rhythm games.
Fundamentally rhythm games versus like some of the other ones on here. They're like different games,
right?
Like that are then just like put together under one umbrella for whatever reason, whatever the framing device is.
And I'm sure at some point we will be hypocrites on this.
Oh, us?
We will say one thing and say this disqualifies something, and then we'll say, but also this.
Yep, yeah, for sure.
And I also for my money, a micro game collection, also a mini game collection.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I mean, microgame, a term made up by Wario, right? So we shouldn't put too much stock in it
Uh-huh.
as a distinguishing feature from
As a money-making
minigames.
tactic, we might add.
Yeah, true. Although it seems like it just leads to more development work. You got to like make more unique assets.
Right.
Um, we're talking about this because Everybody 1-2 Switch was announced. It's going to be coming out later. What's your experience with the original 1-2 Switch?
Almost nothing.
Yeah.
I think I've played it for a total of like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and it was at your house shortly after the Switch released.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you and Sarah had played it, your parents had visited
Right.
shortly after the Switch was released, and you had all played it together. And then I came over, I think probably to record an episode of this show, and it was kind of like, look how crazy this is, and we like put the baby to sleep, and
Right. You answer the phone.
exactly, and like took the chain off the treasure chest and like that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then because it was more just so I think that's really my only experience with it.
Yeah, I don't have too much, but I think like in you saying what your experience of it is, you also described my experience because you mentioned all the other times that I had played it. I know that I've not experienced every mini game that 1-2 Switch has to offer. I don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything, or like anything fun. Which isn't to say that I think there are no joys in 1-2 Switch. I think there are some joys. I genuinely think that the answering the telephone game was fun, and like kind of silly because it's like okay, the first person who like picks up the Joy-Con, like holds it to their head when it rings, like gets the point, and then it's like wait for this ring, and so then there'll be like a kind of fake out ring, and just like fun dumb little stuff like that. It's definitely all like built into the sort of gimmick of the Joy-Cons themselves. Did you play the one where you had to like eat what was it? It's like a hot dog. There's something you have to eat.
I can't remember.
And you hold the IR sensor up to your mouth and like just chomp at it.
I don't know that I did.
That's weird, man. It's a weird experience.
I do feel like that's like another kind of like hallmark of minigame collections is not all of them are winners, right? Within a collection, you got ones you like are a lot of fun that you prefer,
right?
And then some that duds are not. Yeah,
you get duds.
Yeah, you get duds.
You get duds, and that's all there is to it.
But it doesn't really matter because it is
you're on to the next thing.
As long as the like good to bad ratio is strongly in favor of the good, then like the few duds are acceptable.
I mean, I think it's also okay when and this is not on my list, but like Pokemon Stadium has a fair amount of mini games in it, and obviously there's a whole other like thing to the game that's not just those mini games, but like you can just choose which mini games you want to play, right? And that's if you find like 3 that you like, then like that makes it a worthwhile game, kind of, I guess. But so yeah, it's I would like to check in on as we like go through our minigame collections that we brought up, and be like, is this actually a good game? Like on balance, is this a good game?
Right?
Because I think the answers are going to be kind of all over the place.
I think so too. I think so too.
We were also kind of dancing around another, I think, sort of hallmark of minigame collections, especially Nintendo minigame collections, is that they are frequently tied into the core gimmick of the hardware. That they are built around the concept that was also meant to like sell the hardware,
which is, and this is kind of how I feel about looking at like the history of Nintendo, and this is where I was surprised a little bit, where I'm like, oh, I guess these aren't as like pervasive as I imagined in my head there were, because there are examples before, but I feel like Wii Sports really kicked off this like era.
Yes.
Or like it is a thing that Nintendo does frequently now.
Yes.
And just like you're saying, it is in a way that promotes the hardware, and I think like explains the hardware. That was the point of Nintendo Land for sure with
totally.
the Wii U.
Yeah.
You have Wii Sports 1-2 Switch. I think is the same thing. Like it is that kind of like introduction to, you're in that launch window wonkiness, where developers are trying to take advantage of all of the different weird things in a system that eventually everybody It's always
either takes for granted or ignores.
Yeah, or ignores. And it's always kind of like fun to look back and see like what shook out as like the important things
Absolutely.
and like what ended up not making a difference.
Right, that IR sensor in the bottom of Joy-Cons. Do you think they're ever going to stop making Joy-Cons with the IR sensor?
Yeah, it's interesting
because who else uses it?
They keep it in. Maybe it's just easier at this point to just like, because I
point.
honestly don't think IR sensors are very expensive.
Yeah,
so it's probably just easier to not mess with the manufacturing line and just like
probably
they're charging $80 for it.
Yeah, I mean, what a great point. And they're not going to fix the left thumbstick, so they're not gonna remove the IR sensor either. And it's also like there's something about as they are positioned to like show off the new hardware, where like at the beginning of the life cycle of all these systems, like it's sort of genuinely fun to mess around with the other features, right?
Oh
like,
yeah, absolutely.
Even though 2 years down the line, you're like, oh yeah, I can't believe that they thought we were going to interact with a thing this way. In the moment, it's fun, and it's fun to show that off to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally the point, where it's like, yeah, get other people in on this idea.
Yeah, it's such a it just goes back to what made Wii Sports so brilliant, because it's in a lot of ways like a tech demo for the system, and then they packed it in with every single one. You know what I mean? Like it was just like, it was so smart.
And then there's, I think, sort of the last thing is that Wii Sports being sort of the example here, that it's these things are usually part of like the sort of blue sky strategy of like anyone, because a lot of these games are easy to understand at a glance, and they sort of have to be, and the whole goal with them is to be like anyone can play this, anyone can pick it up and start having fun with it right now, which is you need to do in a minigame collection. You absolutely need to do in a micro game collection, and so yeah, there's something very like, or maybe like the platonic ideal of these is accessible to any level of players. Okay, good amount of preamble out of the way, Mark.
Yeah,
we've gotten it out of the way. Would you like to? We have brought our favorite minigame collections here to this conversation. I have 5.
I have 4.
Okay, so I should go first.
Yeah, go for it.
I also expect we will have some overlap here.
I think it's possible.
I think it's highly possible, but we'll see. Honorable mentions abound, so we'll see how we do. My first pick here is New Super Mario Brothers for the DS. Came out in 2006, notable for being the first side-scrolling new Mario game in over 13 years. But this game comes packed, Mark, with mini games. You can play these mini games by yourself, or you can play them on the like local Wi-Fi, or the like local multiplayer, full of touchscreen controls and dual screen displays. Did you mess around with the mini games in New Super Mario Brothers?
I feel like I must have, but I don't have any memory of it. So
it's the exact same collection as is in the Mario 64.
Okay, got
DS.
it. I did mess around with that.
So there's I pulled some highlights here. There's a game called Wanted, where the top screen shows you either Mario's face, Luigi's face, Wario's face, or Yoshi's face. And then on the bottom screen, you have to find that face and tap it. And sometimes it's super easy. There are the 4 faces, you click the right one. And then sometimes they're like moving around. Sometimes it's a huge like dense cluster of them. That game, surprisingly addictive. I can't tell you how many hours of that I played. There's a game called Witch Wiggler, where they show you like the view of a wiggler from the side, and it has like distinct spot patterns. And then on the bottom screen, there are like a couple of them from an overhead perspective, and you have to click on the right one. There's Hide and Boo Seek, which is like a Luigi's Mansion. You've got a flashlight, you're finding boos. Mario Slides, which is one of those like there are like 4 paths, 4 vertical paths. That's the
one I remember the most.
And Mario has to like you say like, okay, where's Mario gonna land when he goes all the way down this? Sort or Splode. There's it's an overhead view of bombs coming into a room, and there are pink ones and black ones, and you put the pink ones in the pink area, the black ones in the black area, and if you put them in the wrong place, they blow up. trampoline time. You draw trampolines on the thing so that like Mario keeps bouncing. Lakitu launch, which is there. You've got like these little buckets that like catch things, and then there's a whole bunch of table games where Luigi is like a blackjack dealer, and you're playing these card games. And there's a toad that walks around in the background like selling
Serving
drinks.
drinks.
Yep. And it's great. A lot of these are multiplayer. A lot of these you can play by yourself. And it's a surprisingly robust collection of mini games that come with the first new 2D Mario platformer in 13 years.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's interesting that they are the same as were in the Mario 64 remake.
It's a little bizarre that they did this, and it's almost. I almost wonder if they like had developed it as its own thing and they wanted to just put it out and they were like, no, that should be like an add-on to Mario stuff for the first like 2 years of the DS's life cycle. Because it is so much a demonstration of like what the DS can do.
Yeah, that's true. And I could see how maybe the thinking was like, we're going to get a lot of people that buy this game and maybe it's their first Nintendo DS game.
Yeah.
And I think my memory, it's been so long since I played the original New Super Mario Brothers,
Yeah.
but my memory is that it does have some like touchscreen things like items live down there and you tap it, like all that kind of stuff. But it's not
that's
like
really it.
It's not like a full-fledged, like tech demo type thing
Sure.
what the Nintendo DS could do. And so maybe that's the thinking behind including it is it's like, yeah, you have this more traditional 2D platformer that uses the touchscreen a little bit, but here's this other stuff that really shows if this is your, if this is one of the first DS games you picked up, what the DS can do.
Yeah. Well, and then also sort of like pairing it with Mario 64, that they're like covering their bases of like what manner of gamer are we grabbing here?
Right.
The 2D Mario gamer, the 3D Mario gamer, for a truly awful version of Mario 64, just for like control purposes.
Yeah,
I still
totally.
wish they would restore that content in a version that we could play with like a real thumbstick. But yeah, so New Super Mario Brothers, and I suppose Mario 64 DS.
Reluctantly.
That's my first entry in my favorite minigame collection.
That's great. My first pick is a cheat on two fronts. One,
I love it.
It's not developed by Nintendo.
Good.
It's developed by Sega. And two, it's I wouldn't say it's my favorite.
Sure.
But it is certainly
We're sort of just bringing five we like.
It's a memorable. I would say it's a memorable minigame collection for me, and that is Feel the Magic XYXX, also known as Project Rub in Europe, which was a launch title.
Rub? R-U-B?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was a launch title for the Nintendo DS in 2004. And
wow,
it's not very long. It takes maybe an hour to beat the story mode. But I remember, first of all, this was a scandalous purchase. So I received a Nintendo DS, I think, for Christmas, and it was like the original like Nintendo DS before the Lite came out. And this was one of the few games that was out for the system, and so I got it. But with the name plus the cover art is like, because the whole game is kind of like it features humans, but they're in silhouette is like the art style.
Okay.
And so the cover art is like a woman, this silhouette woman in like a bikini. And this was scandalous in my household. My parents begrudgingly, like purchased this game. What's really interesting is that it is, I think because of the cover and like the weird name, and it has...
I'm sorry, can you say the weird name again?
It's Feel the Magic, XYXX. And in Europe, it was called Project Rub because here's like the premise of the game. You are you are a man who is walking in the street and you see a woman and you get like Tex Avery wolf eye,
sure,
it's like
yes,
baboing, and the entirety of the game is you like trying to talk to her or impress her or save her from stampeding bulls. And then there are also a group of they're like an art collective, I don't actually know, of men called the Rub Rabbits, and they have like rabbit ears. who are like cheering you on. And so all of this sounds really kind of like salacious, and with the title and with the cover art, like
Yeah,
you're
totally.
you're like, what is this game? But the thing that's really interesting about it is it's not like the mini games are all absurd or like or silly. Like
Yeah.
one of the but they use the Nintendo DS. It's the perfect like tech demo type thing. It uses there's one mini game where you're like shy and you have to talk to the woman, and it uses the microphone to like see how loud you're talking and like all that kind of stuff.
That's so
and if you're
weird.
not talking loud enough, if it doesn't detect it, it tells you to talk, like speak up. Like it's
And this is true of talking to women, is that you've really got to shout.
and but I mean, and then it's just bizarre things. Like there's one where like there's like guys, there are these people that are like kind of like chasing you down, and they're across the street, almost like a Frogger situation. Like they're on the other side of the street, and there's cars passing on the busy street, and you have to get into this thing that turns you into a bowling ball and like shoot yourself across the street. You use the touchpad on the bottom and the stylus to like uh touch the bottom screen, and then like fling yourself across, avoiding traffic to like knock the guys like
That's
bowling
fun.
pins.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and one thing that was really interesting in reading more about it about the development is that, according to Wikipedia, anyways, it was purposefully not like offensive. The dev team was predominantly women, and that was like a choice by the game director to
Yeah.
make sure that they weren't doing anything like gross or offensive.
Yeah.
And so it really is like it really is harmless, but it's just the name and the box art are so weird. And it's not a bad game. It is just a silly collection of mini games that vary in quality, and some of them are fun, some of them are not fun. But one, I just remember like me receiving this game like is so memorable to me.
Yes.
It was a Nintendo DS launch title, so it checks the box that we were talking about of like tech demo, and it's also a launch title in that it's like an hour long.
Right.
But like,
And
what else are you
barely
gonna
a
pick
game.
up? You
Right.
just
Exactly.
you just bought a Nintendo DS. I had no idea until I was reading about this game some more that there was a sequel to it that was released in
What?
2005 in Japan and 2006 in the rest of the world, called The Rub Rabbits. That is again just another mini game collection.
Okay, a couple things. One, you describing this game at the beginning and saying that it was developed by Sega made me think surely this is an Atlas product.
Oh,
But no, Sonic Team.
oh really? It was
Yes.
straight up Sonic Team.
And then also that the Japanese name for the game is Kimi no Tame Nara Shinaru, which translates as "I would die for you," which is a great title.
It is a great title. It is a great title.
Well, thank you for bringing this to my attention. Feel the magic XY/XX. Those are chromosomes, right?
I assume so.
Okay, all right.
Wait, so you were not
I was
heard of this
not
game before?
familiar with this
okay,
game, no.
awesome. Yeah, I'm glad I'm spreading the word.
Thank you, thank you, Mark.
Don't be put off by the cover art like my parents were.
Yeah. Well, and like you say, a woman in a bikini for whatever reason. I think it's because she is in all her body is white, and then like the clothing and her hair is like a dark color. It read as underwear to me,
Oh,
and not as a bikini. Either way, I will be checking that out later. All right, my second pick here for minigame collections. Look, was it just an excuse to buy another Wii remote? Or was it a great collection of games? I'm referring, of course, to Wii Play, the follow-up to kind of the sort of spiritual immediate successor to Wii Sports. Came out in 2007, like February, I believe, in the United States. So just a couple months after the Wii came out and Wii Sports was such a big success, Wii Play is like it's way more video gamey than Wii Sports, and it's also like a little bit tabletop-y. Like it seems like they're trying to capture some of the same super accessibility things as Wii Sports, but it's such an odd collection of games. Do you have any experience with Wii Play?
No, I didn't buy it, and I don't really have. I always confuse Wii Play and Wii Party, which I think was later in the Wii's life. But I think of it as, like you were saying, like there was such a huge success with Wii Sports and then Nintendo being able to capitalize on that same sort of like everybody can play this. Like
Yes.
all the mini games are super like approachable and like easy to play, and but without like the sports trappings. It's more like Mario Party
I mean, like, kind of, because there is still a element of it feels very, and I apologize if this is on your list later, but it's very Clubhouse games.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of these games that appear in We Play do appear in the Switch version of Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. There's a tanks mini game that plays very much like the Atari game Combat. That requires like the Wii remote and Joy-Con, and you're kind of like moving around and shooting stuff with tanks. But here are the I have the full list of mini games, but I bolded those that I thought were like genuinely great. There's a shooting range, which ends up having like some of the same mechanics as Link's crossbow training, which would come out a couple years later. Find Me, which is a game that is I guess pretty similar to the like Wanted game on the DS in New Super Mario Brothers, where like it shows you a Mii, and it's either a Mii that you've created and is on your Wii, or is one that they randomly generate, and then you see like a cityscape with Mii's walking around, and you have to like be the first person to find that Mii and like click on them. There's a table tennis, which is very much like tennis on Wii Sports, but is more like you have more freedom of movement to like go around to the place where the ball is going to be. There's a Pose Me game where you like use the Wii remote to pose a Mii in the same shape as like bubbles that are like floating towards them. And then there's a laser hockey, which is like air hockey, but you're playing it with Wii remotes. So like it feels like in some ways sort of arcadey, sort of like rec room sports table kind of things. And it's such a bizarre little collection of games, and came with a Wii remote.
Oh yeah, that's right. And did it cost extra, or was it just $50?
It was just $50.
Wow.
It was at steal.
Yeah.
Because Wii remotes were what, $30 or $40 at that point?
Something like that, yeah.
So yeah, you were getting the game for like $10 or $20 effectively. It's weird, like you said it and I said it, but like Wii Sports hadn't been out long enough for them to be like, a certified hit.
Right.
And so we got to follow up on this as fast as we can. It came out 3 months later.
Wow,
or 4 months later, I guess.
Yeah, so it was just planned all along.
It was just planned all along. Yeah. And they knew that after one Thanksgiving and Christmas with people having access to the Wii, they'd be like, I need another one of these kind of games to bring next year or whatever.
Man, knowing that that's true, how crazy to think if like the Wii had not taken off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they would have to sell something for it, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's sort of like if there was a follow-up style like party game like this for the Switch that came out in like July
right.
Of 2017.
Yeah.
On the heels of 1-2 Switch, and obviously that wasn't the case.
Right. Man. Also so generous with the pack-ins back then.
Yeah, so generous. I mean, I think they were just trying to sell the second Wii remote. Although, like, I feel like people just had them.
Did each? Now I'm trying to remember. Wii's only came with one, or did it come with two?
I think it just came with one.
Okay, so yeah.
And then did it come with a nunchuck too, or did you have to buy that separately?
I feel like it came with a nunchuck, but I can't remember. It's been so long. I'm looking at my list and I'm realizing that not on purpose, but it is basically entirely like Nintendo DS games and the Nintendo DS era.
I think that's fine.
I would say maybe no. I was gonna say it was the height of the minigame collection, but I don't think that's true. But I do think that's when they hit their stride, for sure.
Oh, the DS? Yeah. I think so. I think there are foundational DS games that are minigame collections.
So the one I want to talk about next is Brain Age: Train Your Brain in Minutes a Day, also known as Dr. Kawashima's Brain Training: How Old Is Your Brain in Europe. It was released for the Nintendo DS in 2005 in Japan and 2006 in the rest of the world. And I always think of this. I think because it features Sudoku, but it
Yes.
and like the rise in popularity of, or
Yes.
like me becoming aware of Sudoku,
Right.
like happened at the same time.
Yeah.
Like Sudoku was getting
Mhm.
big. Brain Age came out, and they continue to make these games. They made one for Switch that was not released in North America,
A minor crime, I'd say.
and an open question as to why they chose not to release it, because it was released in Europe and it was released in Japan, and there's speculation online that have you heard of Luminosity?
Yes.
Which, okay,
Mhm.
so apparently they were sued a couple of years ago for making like
Luminosity was sued
for
by
making
Nintendo?
no
Okay.
for by like somebody who had bought the product
Mm.
for making claims about like what these sorts of things can do.
Yeah, what the actual benefits are.
And
Yeah.
I actually have no idea. I don't know what the outcome of that lawsuit was, or if it was settled or whatever. But there's speculation that made like Nintendo gun shy about bringing one of these out, because they
That makes
have
sense.
released. They did release the Switch version of Big Brain Academy, which is a series that started on the Nintendo DS when they had something called Touch Generations, was kind of like their
Right.
branding for some of these more like lifestyle games. And Big Brain Academy is more silly. It's not like making any health claims. It's purely saying like I think as you play it, you're trying to make your brain bigger, but that's like in the world of the game. The more you
Okay,
play,
that's
like
funny. Yeah.
the denser your brain gets, and it's more just like mini games and like puzzles and stuff like that. I haven't actually played it.
Yeah,
anyways,
but Brain Age definitely presents itself. The whole thing is like narrated to you by this Dr. Kawashima.
uh-huh.
And like they evaluate your brain age, and of course it starts you at like 80 or something, and you're like, oh no, my brain is so old.
Yeah, so it was framed as like, oh, like if you're doing, because it's based on the studies that Dr. Kawashima has done, and yeah, it was framed as like, oh, this is a great way to exercise your brain and keep your cognitive abilities firing and all that kind of stuff. So, like Patrick was saying, you held your Nintendo DS like a book.
Love it. I love a good book
And
DS
so, like,
game.
the screen and instructions would be on the left, and the right is where you would like execute the puzzles or do whatever you need to do. And then there was the like analysis part where you would select that, and it was like it would give you a selection of like 4 different things for you to do.
Yeah, it
and
would
that's
run you through a little gauntlet.
and that's how it would determine what your brain age was. And then there was training, which it would encourage you to do like every day. And that was a series of like collections where you are doing Sudoku, or you're like multiplying things by 20. Just it's there were some where you spoke out loud. It was that thing where it would show you a color or like a word that says green, but the word is printed in blue, and you would have to speak to the microphone like what color it's printed in.
Right.
I
Or
can't remember what that's
it would
called.
depend on the prompt too.
Right,
Because
yeah.
sometimes it would be like, what is the word here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that sort of like sense stuff. Like you sort of get the feeling that there is someone in the room, like with a deck of like flashcards, like trying to trick you,
Like quizzing you on
Yeah.
it and stuff. So yeah, and that was I absolutely bought Brain Age.
Yeah,
it
me
was just
too.
like a fun like kind of like puzzle collection, and
I mean, there's something very satisfying about, and like you do genuinely feel like you're getting sharper as you play it, right? Or at least that was my
yeah, because
impression
you're
of it at the
practicing
time.
math like more
Yeah.
regularly, like stuff I hadn't done in years. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Are there actual brain health benefits from doing it?
Who knows?
Who
We're not
knows?
making any claims.
We refuse to make any claims. I think probably yeah, though, right?
Seems like it can't hurt.
This was one that, and I'm sure we've talked about it on the show before, and your explanation about maybe Nintendo becoming gun shy after Luminosity getting sued. This is one that I was always surprised they never brought to phones during
Totally.
their big push for like phone stuff, because like You've got like 5 minutes of like downtime and you've got your phone with you. Like, yeah, absolutely do one little brain age puzzle. It's not graphically intense. It could boot up immediately, measuring yourself against like your friends. Like, I just feel like it would be the perfect iPhone game.
Maybe there were just too many, because there are already so many that
It's a
exist.
great
Like
point.
there wasn't really anything that differentiates it as like Nintendo. And also by that point, by the time they were exploring that, it had been at least a few years since the last brain age
That's a good
game.
point. Yeah.
Um, uh, but yeah, the Nintendo DS was such a kind.
It's Wild West.
It was a little
Yeah.
bit like it was such a like where Nintendo has gone back to being more just like a traditional video game developer. At this point, they were deep in their blue ocean strategy.
Yes.
And they cast a very wide net with what sort of like
Yep.
games they were developing and releasing.
Yeah, I mean, 2006, 2007, when it's all DS and Wii U or in Wii, like yeah, they were, and it would take them a while to get back to the sort of like core gaming kind of stuff, and then never really let go of like the elements of the blue ocean strategy. Um, and like it's just amazing how many like good examples of like genuinely compelling games there are from that period, even if we kind of look at that period as a like not as like a golden age
Yeah.
for quality Nintendo games. All right, my next pick, going to the Game Boy / Game Boy Color. Mark has already mentioned the series. I'm talking Game and Watch Gallery number 3 from 1999. It is the last Game and Watch Gallery to appear on the Game Boy. There's a Game and Watch Gallery 4 on Game Boy Advance. Um, uh, we dug into a lot of the Game and Watch galleries during our Game and Watch month, like 2 years ago at this point. Game and Watch Gallery 3 is also available on the Switch Online Game Boy library. And I totally recommend everyone check it out because it has one of the best libraries of Game and Watch games available from the get-go, including several where the modern versions of them are also great like revisions to the gameplay. The games that it comes with from the jump are Egg, which is a wolf catching eggs in a basket that are coming from like 4 different little shoots. Greenhouse, which is one of my favorite Game and Watch games. You play as Stanley the Bugman. Mark, he's showing up on the show. Stanley the Bugman, and for me, not my last reference to Stanley the Bugman. And he's spraying pesticide to protect flowers. And the modern version of that is also really good. It's like Yoshi spitting seeds at bad guys. Turtle Bridge, where you're crossing from one side of a river to the other. Mario Brothers, which is the one where you've got Mario and Luigi on like opposite sides of like a conveyor belt thing, and you control them both. And Donkey Kong Jr., which like for my money, moment for moment, may be the best Game and Watch game. I just love it so much. And then there are unlockable games in there that start off sort of weak but get kind of incredible by the end. So Flagman and Judge are the first 2 that you unlock. Those are like I think among the sort of weakest Game and Watch games. But then there's Lion, which is where you're a lion tamer trying to like force lions back into their cage. And so you're like approaching from opposite sides. Spitball Sparky, which was one of 2 color Game and Watch games. It's basically like an Arkanoid or Breakout kind of game. And then Donkey Kong 2. So like those last 3 are absolute like the classics and like hard to get. Spitball Sparky, that's one of those Game and Watch games where they like made 15,000 of them ever and it just doesn't exist. And so if you want to actually play the game, this is the only way you'll ever have to play it. It's a great collection.
Yeah. Wow. Game and Watch. I went into Game and Watch month whenever we did that, like not knowing anything about it, not really feeling anything about it, and really falling in love with how solid, amazingly solid and fun these like simple gameplay loops end up being.
Yeah.
And how you appreciate how many that they were cranking out and like how they were actually created. It was just kind of like remarkable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely worth checking out if you've never really seen Game and Watch before. And this is a great collection to start with.
Yeah, and it's if you're subscribing to Nintendo Switch Online, not even the expansion pack, you can just check it out right now. One little note, and I meant to check up on this, but I didn't. When you like boot up these games, like the individual Game and Watch games, they show you like a little cross section of the Game Boy and like points to like the buttons and like this button does this button does this, and that graphic changes depending on what hardware you're playing it on. So if you're playing it on a regular Game Boy, it looks like a regular Game Boy. If you're playing it on Game Boy Color, it says Game Boy Color on the thing, and like it's got the sort of like slanted like edges of the thing. And if you're playing it on a Super Game Boy, it knows and it shows you the Super NES controller down there. So I meant to check what does it show on Switch, and I assume that it toggles between the Game Boy and Game Boy Color depending on what setting you have the thing on. But what a cool little feature.
That is really cool.
They just wanted to make sure that no matter what, again, accessible as possible, right? So it doesn't matter what you're playing on, they have an accurate diagram of how to use the controller in your hand to play that game.
My next pick is another game that was memorable to me from the Nintendo DS era, but there is also a Wii game and a 3DS game that you may be able to find physically now, I guess.
You would have to.
Way
Yeah.
that you could purchase it, and that is Rhythm Heaven.
Yep.
And I think that there was a Game Boy Advance version in like a Game Boy Advance entry in the series that kind of kicked it off in Japan. But the first one that was localized was for the Nintendo DS, I believe. And this is another one where you hold the DS like a book. And it is really similar in structure to something like WarioWare. The difference is that they're not like micro games. They don't take just mere seconds. They're usually there's like 50 rhythm games, and they're broken into 10 sets where you play 4 like games, and then there's a remix level at the end that kind of is like the boss level that incorporates the 4 games that you just played into one song. So again, kind of like that WarioWare structure in the story mode. But on the Nintendo DS, it's just a bunch of different short rhythm games, but the music is really fun, really good, and then I just remember having an absolute blast with this game. I don't think I owned the Wii version, but I did buy Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix for the Nintendo 3DS. Not that I think it was after the store was announced to be closed.
It was part of your panic buying.
And it was one of it was part of like the panic buying. And I think I don't never say never, but I don't know that this is a well that Nintendo's going to go back to anytime soon in this new era of like consolidated development. But they are definitely worth checking out, and Megamix is a good way to do that because kind of like WarioWare Gold, it's like a greatest hits collection essentially.
Can I ask this question? Why does and I've not played Rhythm Heaven, so I might be talking out of turn here. Why does Rhythm Heaven count where Elite Beat Agents does not?
Okay, so I think the difference is that is in like the structure itself.
Okay.
Just like WarioWare, like micro games, I feel like Elite Beat Agents, to my understanding, again, I haven't played the game, is that there's basically like 4 gameplay modes that it toggles between.
Okay, all right.
Versus Rhythm Heaven, where there's like 50 different games that are asking you to do different things. That's kind of why why I make that distinction.
Great. I buy your argument. It's a good argument.
Until somebody who's actually played Elite Beat Agents tells me I'm wrong.
Well,
in which case,
and if we choose to listen to that, we don't have to. There's nowhere in the book that says we have to listen to that.
But yeah, Rhythm Heaven, definitely worth checking out.
Another just kind of like weird development dead end that like why no Rhythm Heaven now?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it just kind of
they want to put out everybody 1-2 Switch so bad.
Maybe it just kind of like ran its course. I don't think it was ever a very like huge selling series, and so I'm guessing they just like prioritized things elsewhere.
For my next pick, I'm going back to a well that I go to all the time, This is a game. It's actually a pair of games. Also, maybe a third one if you want to lump this in. But this is NES Remix, volumes 1 and 2 for the Wii U, or the Nintendo NES Remix Ultimate on the 3DS. Between the volume 1 and 2, there are 28 NES games featured in these two games, and what it is it takes all of the best moments from these NES games, these first-party NES games, and presents them as bite-sized challenges where you've got 10 seconds to bounce on as many Goombas as you can, finish this level of Kid Icarus, just do whatever. All these amazing little bite-sized experiences from games that already exist, and then you get awarded some stars and you move on. And then you can get into the remix sets of these games, which take now Pit is in Zelda, or Samus is running around in the Ice Climber universe or whatever. And again, it's still bite size, just maybe 10 to 30-second long experiences at a crack, but then it strings those together into longer challenges. It's just an absolutely stellar package. And I can't this one is genuinely mind-blowing to me that they don't have on the Switch.
This is another, because there was a 3DS version that I think combined the
it
two.
It doesn't have all of
yeah,
of
it doesn't
the
have
games
all
in
of them.
it,
But this is another one that I panic bought when the
Smart.
3DS
Smart.
store closed. I panic bought too many things because there's so much on my Switch that I haven't.
This is totally worth panic buying.
3DS that I haven't played. But it is one, just because you had talked about it so highly, and it sounds so fun.
Yeah, it's breathtakingly fun. It's I didn't max out both of these collections on the Wii U, but I got as far as my ability. Punch Out's in here. I can't I can't do micro challenges in Punch Out. I'm not that good. But yeah, I played so much of both of these games, and if they just kept putting them out, if they did a Super NES remix, if they did a Game Boy remix, it would be all the better for it. And both these games had a thing where then you could if you were enjoying one of these games, it would lead you to the eShop to actually buy that full game if you wanted it. Obviously, they don't have the same system in place right now, and maybe that's why this game doesn't exist, is because it can't also be a commercial for a product you could buy. But most of these games are available on the NES Switch Online.
My next pick,
Is this your final pick?
I'm going to pull an audible,
okay,
and say that I do have a fifth pick.
Okay, great.
And so I'm gonna do the audible pick right now. And if it's on your list, I apologize.
I only have one pick remaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you only have. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I messed this up then. I'll save it for honorable mentions.
Okay.
And I will just go with my final pick.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm audibling my audible.
Yep. Double audible.
We talked about it previously. It's kind of like you said. It's the prime example of these sorts of collections. The first one that leapt to mind, and it's Wii Sports. But and so there's a lot about Wii Sports that we already talked about, the commercial side of it, how brilliant it was as a tech demo for the Wii, and how bundling it with the system in the United States made such and I think in Europe too, but made such a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
But I know that Wii Sports Resort is considered the better game and all that kind of stuff. But for me, Wii Sports was truly magical, and the reason I think I've talked about it on the show before, but is because it was like a Nintendo commercial. It was the Nintendo dream scenario where my dad never really interested in video games, but my mom would play Super Mario Brothers on the NES but after that didn't kind of lost interest, especially when it went 3D and all that kind of stuff. But with the Wii, my entire family was playing video games together.
Right.
My dad for the first time, basically, my mom again, and everybody was having a great time. It really was crossing generations. We were all playing this thing together, and it was incredible. And we've never had a video, like the Wii era was perfect for that. It was not just this, but we also did a lot of like Just Dance. I have such good memories like of the Just Dance series, because we were all like being goofy and having fun together.
Yes.
And that is something that like that is not my video game experience now. Like
Right.
I don't. I bought Nintendo Switch Sports with the intention of being able to like bring it to family gatherings, but I haven't done that. It's just like that was such a perfect moment for uh, uh for that kind of like cross generation video game playing, and it meant a lot to me at the time, and it means a lot to me now.
I'm going out of town this weekend with some friends of mine, and we're all bringing our Switches, and I intend to pull out Nintendo Switch Sports at some point to see if we have fun playing it. But yeah, they're really just, and I'm hopeful for that experience. But they built a lot of that towards like the sort of online experience as well. So maybe it won't matter and won't be something special. But like, and I think this is also why Wii Sports over Wii Sports Resort is the thing that's gonna like live longer in like our hearts and memories. Is that like it's the promise of the Wii, and it just works. Like uh you likened your experience with it to the Wii commercial, and we talk sometimes about like approaching the like Switch commercial, in reality of like, oh yeah, we pulled out our Switches and like played in a restaurant, set it up on a table, and had two-player like happening right there, and that happens sometimes a little bit, but it's never like nothing will ever be as fully realized commercial to reality as Wii Sports.
Yeah. I really, it's kind of crazy how well they
Yeah.
had a goal for what they wanted to do and just nailed it.
Also, I know that making Mii's is not part of Wii Sports. It's part of just the Wii's like system, whatever. But making Mii's with people that you were sitting down to play Wii Sports with was also a perfect experience.
Yes.
It's fun, it's goofy, it's immediately accessible, and everyone can do it and loves it.
And then you see their like weird little limbless bodies,
Yep.
playing tennis or something. It's great.
Yep. It is truly great. Mark, for my final minigame collection, again, this is another. I feel like all of these are wells that I go back to all the time, and so I apologize for being predictable. Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is my final pick. Rusty is a game that is often remembered for its bizarre presentation, story, and monetization strategy. It is a game where you had to interact with a dog who was a former ball player and patronize his shop with real money and bargain with him with real money to get access to all these mini games. And it is truly remarkable for all of that, right? That is a genuinely fun, crazy part of the game, and like that's why it'll be entombed in the like Nintendo curiosities forever. But the games themselves, the baseball themed games, are genuinely incredible, and I love them all. And there's so much variety in how you play them, how you interact with. Again, another great tech demo for the 3DS. That there's a lot of the 3D really helps you judge where a pitch is. So like when you can swing at it, there's like tilting and like motion controls to catch things. And there's the touch screen where you're like calling balls and strikes. It's such a fun and inventive collection of games, and married in this package with this insane narrative, and in some ways the fact that you are buying the games with real money through the eShop is another way of showing off a hardware feature of the 3DS, is that it has an eShop. It's Rusty will always occupy a huge place in my heart. I just love it to pieces, and a mini game collection conversation is not complete as far as I'm concerned until we've talked about Rusty's Real Deal Baseball.
Yeah, that's a great final pick. Any honorable mentions that we just want to throw out there?
So we've been not including any Mario parties or any WarioWare games.
Okay,
Feels egregious.
Yeah, WarioWare.
I was not doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
but
yeah. WarioWare I didn't want to include, but this is another one that for me, I think WarioWare Gold that was available on the Nintendo 3DS is a
Almost perfect,
Is a great
yeah.
showcase for it. But for me, the ones that like I remember fondest are WarioWare Touched. Is that what it's called?
on DS.
On DS,
Mhm.
and then Smooth Moves
Oh, Smooth Moves
for
is so good.
the Wii, and that
Smooth Moves is also so funny.
it is very
like
funny.
all the WarioWare games are like strange and like pretty goofy and funny. But their peak comedy for me is whenever WarioWare Smooth Moves teaches you how to do a new grip of the Joy-Con. Peak comedy. They're just so funny.
Yeah, because it's like a very like zen, calming
Yes.
voice being like, "Ah, yes, the sumo grip."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The chopsticks.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is very good. The other one I wanted to call out is Nintendo Land,
Yeah.
and this
Wii
was
U launch game.
yeah, and I didn't another one like Wii Sports kind of being like, was this a pack-in? Was Nintendo Land a pack-in?
It's a great question. I never owned it.
So then no, probably
well,
not.
but I didn't get a Wii U on launch, so
Oh yeah, that's true.
I waited until there was a new Super Mario Brothers package for it. So I think it may have been a pack-in early on.
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember, but was again kind of like I never owned a Wii U, so I don't know, but like a Wii U tech demo type thing showing how you can do this asynchronous gameplay and how like the gamepad can enhance gameplay. The one that I played the most was Luigi's Ghost Mansion,
Which is it's a really good game.
which
Really good minigame.
we called Roast That Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person who has the gamepad is a ghost, and everybody else is like Luigi, Mario, Wario, whatever. I think, or maybe you're all
Maybe
Luigis,
they're all Luigi's. I think.
but basically, you're like the person who you're wandering through this mansion in like an isometric view that is like a Luigi's Mansion style spooky space, and then the person with the gamepad is a ghost, and they are
They can move around invisibly.
they can move around
Yeah.
invisibly, and nobody else can see them. And so, but you know that they're getting close because your Wiimote begins to like rumble, and then you have to shine your flashlight at the ghost. And when you hit them with your flashlight, they like sizzle, and so
Yep.
that's why we called it Roast That Ghost.
Roast that ghost. There's
Uh-huh.
also like a Metroid game in there, which is pretty good. And
There's one where you
like
like
a Mario Kart.
yes, there's one where
Yeah.
like one person is Mario and everybody else is trying to catch
That's
them.
right, trying to chase him. Which is like, and all of that's good. There are so many mini games in there, and I think a lot of them are bad.
Yes, I think this, unfortunately, it's just kind of the story of the Wii U.
Yeah.
But it leans more in the not good territory
I
rather
agree.
than like good.
And there are also a bunch of the mini games that require the people using the. I mean, first of all, there is a little hang up on like the Wii remote of it all. That like you really need to have like 3 or 4 Wii remotes to really like play these things
Yeah.
fully featured. Whereas like tennis, you can do one-on-one tennis in Wii Sports and like have 2 Wii remotes and it's perfect, right? But like you just need so much equipment to make these games work.
Nintendo Land is really predicated on the idea that like you bought a cajillion Wiimotes for the Nintendo Wii and
Right.
you still want to use them.
Which was true at the time,
Right.
but like became less true every month, right?
Uh-huh.
But so some of those games require Wii Motion Plus as well. So while people did have a big backlog of you bought 3 Wii remotes and Wii Play when the system originally came out because you wanted to play these games with other people, you sure didn't buy 4 Wii Motion Pluses.
Yeah.
You maybe bought one to play Skyward Sword, but also probably not. So yeah, it's a lot of you're locked out of playing a lot of those games because they require Wii Motion Plus.
But a few really good ones
Few really
in
good
there
ones,
in
yeah.
that package.
Mario Party. Care to speak on it?
I honestly don't have. I basically have no experience with Mario Party. I remember playing it a couple of times at friends' house, and I remember renting one of them from like Blockbuster at some point.
Yeah.
But it's never been a series that has really meant anything to me.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat with you there. I did enjoy Super Mario Party as it came out on Switch a couple years ago. In particular, there is a game mode where all four characters are in a raft together, and they have to play a lot of cooperative games, which is super fun and like a fun twist on the like ultra competitive, try to get one over on your friends gameplay of normal Mario Party. It's surprising. There are so many Mario Party games.
Yeah.
There's like 15 of them.
The other one I want to call out, which we did mention in talking about Wii Sports, is Wii Sports Resort. A game that I have not put a lot of time into, but I think the framing device of it is cool. That you're on like this one singular space, Woohoo Island, where all of it is taking place.
Woohoo.
And I think that, and the most that I know about this game is I have watched somebody's deep dive, like 45-minute deep dive on YouTube, all about like the lore of Woohoo Island. So even though I haven't put a lot of time into the game, I know
you feel like you know it.
yeah, exactly.
I mentioned Pilot Wings already as like a honorable mention. Those are very strange games where moment to moment it's like, yeah, what am I going to do this time when I turn it on? And then I had one more, and it's fallen out of my head. What were we talking about before? We were talking about Wii Sports Resort,
Mario Party.
Mario Party. I'm not gonna get there. Yeah, I'm just not. I'm just like, well, this is so unsatisfying. I feel like there was one. Oh, I'm kind of surprised you didn't bring up Kirby Superstar.
Yeah. Okay. So Kirby Superstar, for whatever, I think because the games that it offers are too meaty in my mind to be considered a like mini game collection. It's like the difference between I don't know, like a short story and a novella. Like like I think there, if it were a collection of the Kirby actual like mini games, like the home run hitting games and like that sort of thing,
right?
I think that'd be one thing, but to my mind anyway, the actual like games in Kirby Superstar are, even though they're fairly short, are too robust. It takes they're not like, oh, we'll even play this in like 20 minutes, like, or something like that. Yeah. It's like you're usually spending at least an hour in order to complete it.
Right. Well, because it's sort of like half and half, right? It's like half that and half the like the quick draw or whatever it's called in that one, where it's like maybe a samurai game. There are a lot of and of course Kirby calls them sub games. So there are a ton of sub games in the recently released Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Which I know neither of us really spent much time with, but I would be interested in like digging into the sub game collection portion of that.
Yeah, I mean, we did a whole episode ranking the Kirby sub games because it's such a fun core part of that franchise.
Yeah, and maybe sort of weird they haven't just like put out a just straight up minigame collection, right? Like,
yeah, they tend to like break them up and then like expand
them
a little bit.
3 in this game and 3 in this game.
Or they're like, okay, we're gonna take this one and blow it out a little bit and then charge $20 for it on the eShop.
Well, yes, and that's let's not encourage that. All right, Mark, we've talked about our favorite minigame collections and then some. Let's close this segment out. That is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Did we miss your favorite Nintendo minigame collection? Did we not mention the that Raving Rabbids game on Wii? Or actually, was that on...
There was one on Switch.
Was there one on Switch?
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, you can write into us. Nintendo
Carnival games. Sorry, now I'm just naming things.
There we are. For a second, I was like, does Duck Hunt count?
Well, what about Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games? Does that count?
What about World Class Track Meet? Does that count? Email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com and let us know. That's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Thank you to our 16-bit patron, Connor McCabe. We appreciate you. Connor, Join our Discord, email us, and we'll send you an invitation. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers, saying thank you for listening.